Okay, right, let's kick things off. So, thank you everyone for joining, and especially thank you to our guest Hayley for coming on this webinar. If you don't know who we are or don't know who I am, just to give you a bit of context, we've got quite a lot of members that have, we've got quite a lot of people that have signed up to this webinar that are not necessarily members of UK Homes Network. UK Homes Network is the first social media platform exclusively for property people. It's a way that you guys can network, talk about what's happening in the industry, and promote your businesses. All for free. You can scan the QR code. We'll also put a link in the chat in a moment where you can sign up via the web browser version. And you'll find over 1,000 property professionals in there, all networking, all sharing what they're doing. It's a fantastic alternative to LinkedIn. If you're getting bored of the noise that's on LinkedIn from other industries and you just want to network with property people, please do sign up. In 2 weeks' time, our next webinar, we are going to be joined by the amazing Christine and Mark McAleenan from Michaela Property Solutions. You might recognise Mark and Christine from the Northampton Pin. These guys do an incredible job of a networking event in Northampton, and they have built a property empire through purchase lease options. And Mark does a lot of great work helping people understand how purchase lease options work. So they're going to join us on the 31st of January to run through that. So if you guys can sign up for that webinar, register nice and early, that would be great. You can find all the details for that in the events tab of UK Homes Network. So yeah, guys, as I say, this is a totally interactive session. It's great to see all of you commenting in the chat. Let us know where you're dialing in from, what you do in the industry. And of course, if you've got questions for Hayley, we're going to deep dive into this session. So if we can, we'll get round to your questions towards the end. So submit your questions to Hayley. It'd be great to hear from you. Obviously, if we don't get time for that, you can always drop Hayley a message in the UK Homes Network or her other social media platforms if you'd like to find out a little bit more about Hard Hats to Heels or Your Freedom Empire. So, bit of context for people that don't know me. My name's Chris. I'm the co-founder of UK Homes Network. I set it up with my brother David. We are 2 weeks away from our first birthday as a platform. So really exciting stuff. I've been in property for 14 years, mainly worked in a estate agency, but also worked in house building and property finance. And as of this year, as of last year, we launched UK Homes Network. So be great to have you guys in there. Now that's enough from me. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to hand over to Hayley in just a second. So Hayley, how are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Great stuff. Great to have you here. We've obviously got quite a bit of excitement around you joining us. I know people might recognise you from your role on Property Elevator, the hit TV on Sky, but also you've got fantastic networking events, Hard Hats to Heels, and also you're doing a lot to help the industry with some great standards and raising the bar with Your Freedom Empire. So could you give a bit of context for those that don't know you? Just give you a bit of an introduction.
Yeah, sure. So, of course, I'm Hayley Andrews. I'm the CEO and founder of several companies, Your Freedom Empire being one of those, which is a global property and business training organisation. I'm an investor and developer. I've been in the industry since 2002. I'm a portfolio landlord as well. So my portfolio consists of residential and commercial. I've done everything from buy-to-lets, small HMOs, large HMOs, factories into cluster flats, listed buildings, development, land, car parks, and everything else in between, creative strategies as well, such as rent-to-rent, lease options, and all of the creative, wonderful stuff. My portfolio has everything from bars, restaurants, car parks. I have a museum, of which I've seen is on the advertisement for this webinar, schools, hotels, offices, small HMOs right up to 21, 22 beds. And yeah, I own estate and lettings agencies as well. I have a sourcing division of 42 agents UK wide. Our training organisation is across 18 different countries, and I've been named one of the UK's most inspirational female entrepreneurs. I think probably just to finish that off, of course, I'm the only female on the hit Sky TV show Property Elevator, where investors and developers pitch for funding for those deals, and we decide if we want to work with them or not.
Amazing. So you've got a lot on your plate, it's fair to say.
Yeah. Alongside that, I do talks and a keynote speaker at several different events throughout different parts of the world, and but predominantly here in the UK. And I sit on the town's boards. I'm a trustee and governor across 9 different schools. So very much about giving back, being in the know, understanding what's going on, volunteering my time. It's all very intentional, and there's benefits off the back of that, of course. It's a business decision, but yes, absolutely very diverse what I do, let's say.
One thing that stood out to me about you, Hayley, is not only have you got all this going on, you're also a fierce networker, because there's not many events that I attend where you're not there. So yeah, I'm going to take you right back though, because there's obviously a lot to unpack with your career and all the sort of different elements, the way you've diversified your portfolio. What inspired you to get into property in the first place? Because obviously it's quite a daunting prospect for most people to get into property.
I'd say what initially inspired me was the desire for independence. I'm fiercely independent. I started out really young. I left home at 16. I I'm very much a doer. I've always been entrepreneurial. I've always known that property is a good tangible asset, but ultimately I'd say it was just that independence. I purchased my own home. I started off as an accidental landlord. Ended up putting a tenant in there, and then was kind of hooked. And then really it just grew into making an impact, making money, of course, and the money is always good, but making an impact, transforming properties into something else, or creating or adding to a community and making money at the same time. So there was that social impact as well as, of course, the bottom line looking good. But I think it started with the independence, wanting to, I come from council estate. I'm one of 7, single parent family as well. And I always just wanted to make a difference in my own life, my family's, and those people around me. And then it's kind of grew from there, really.
Wow, what, one of 7?
Yeah, I'm a twin as well. Not many people know that about me.
I didn't know that. Are you identical?
Half the time I send her to the networking event, so you think you're talking to me, but you're not really. No, I'm only joking. No, we're not identical. We look a lot like each other, but we're completely opposites. 2 very different people, but super, super close as well.
Amazing. So yeah, obviously with all you've got going on with your businesses, and then you've got 7 people to remember birthdays and Christmas cards for. I can just about manage my immediate family, let alone 7 other siblings. So yeah, fantastic.
Well, they all have children as well now, so it's Christmas is full on actually. And I normally cook Christmas lunch for everyone as well, but this year I've been so busy I decided to just have a quiet Christmas with just myself, my son and my husband, and it was really nice. But normally I have them all over. But yes, I don't remember everyone's birthday. It's all about diary management, and notifications for reminders.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the years, you've worn many hats in terms of CEO, founder, mentor, developer. How do you balance all the roles, and what's been the most rewarding part of your journey with each business?
I think I've always kind of worn many hats because I've always had lots of plates spinning. I'm a super dedicated person. I hold myself accountable. And if I say I'm going to do it, I put my stake in the ground and I get on and do it no matter what, regardless of what's going on around me, the challenges that I face. A very problem solving person, and I kind of like that challenge as well. So I would say I've learned a hell of a lot of lessons, and of course, I haven't done it right for the last 20 odd years. There's been, in the beginning, I was very much hands on. I was not only running side businesses, I was, of course, doing property investment as well. I was self-managing, sourcing the properties myself, negotiating the deals, doing the works, doing the tenancies, taking care of those tenants and self-managing as well. So as well as filling skips, stripping wallpapers and all of that type of stuff. So I did a hell of a lot wrong. And I think one of the things I've learned over the years is to value your time. And it's about return on investment, but also return on your time as well. And so I would say I manage them with a very good, solid team behind me. It's not only me. I may be the face of the company and the person that's turning up, doing the talks and being interviewed, but I have an excellent team behind me. It's about delegation and good leadership skills. But yes, I think variety is the spice of life, which reflects in my portfolio, but also reflects across the opportunities that I take, the talks that I do, the training that I deliver, and everything else in between. The most rewarding part is seeing an impact in, people's lives. I guess being a CEO and a founder keeps me sharp, and the mentoring and helping people grow their portfolio from the very beginning or step up to the next level keeps me humble. So I get a massive amount of reward out of everything that I do. I'm very passionate about property as well. Ultimately, I'm in the business to make money as any other business, but the impact that we have with the projects that we choose and the approach that we take is super rewarding.
And that's something that struck me about meeting you over the last 12 months, Hayley, is you are very humble and that you're always looking to give value. Is that sort of your purpose in terms of any sort of project that you undertake, is what value you can give to other people?
Yeah, and on your advertisement, you said the most influential woman in female entrepreneur, and I didn't set out to be influential. I set out to make a positive impact, and I think the recognition has just come off the back of that. So I think if you're solving problems, you're adding value, and you're showing up consistently and delivering, the recognition just comes off the back of that, doesn't it? I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you more recently have been on Property Elevator, Hit TV on Sky. Obviously, we've had Scott and John on from who are your co-stars on Property Elevator. And what's it like working with those guys? How is it?
Awful, awful. No, they're great. I'm really looking forward to filming series 8. So we've been in preparation meetings and things like that with production, the sites, and the studios being booked, etc., hotels and all of that stuff. So the conversation started now, and applications are opening on the 1st of February for people to apply to be on the show. And it's super exciting. They're a great bunch of guys. They take care of me. Not that they need to. I'm super independent, but I think being the only female on the panel, we're all super competitive as well, which is shows the gloves come off. Actually, friendship ends as soon as that camera starts rolling and someone walks in with a pitch, and we are competing for those deals. So There's that entertainment value, but not only is it, spending the time with the guys who are all, good, solid guys doing excellent things in the industry. It's also the people that we meet as well. And it takes me back and kind of reminds me, and not that I need reminding, but it takes me back right to, the creativity and the beginning and the passion and the nerves as people are walking up the stairs and the cameras are watching them. I have a massive amount of respect for anyone that puts themselves on the spot like that and is willing to, put themselves out there to gain something. And it's hard for them as well. We are an ugly bunch, and of course, there is dictation, of course, from production and our director that kind of says, right, well, you've been too nice and you need to be a little bit more strict or nasty, or we need a little bit more, compassion from you or whatever. So there's a bit of leadership there in the background, and we have to kind of take the lead. But off camera, everything's super friendly, and everyone has a fantastic time. And ultimately, we're meeting perhaps our next business partner, which is where the excitement is, I would say. And of course, we're filming in the Dragon's Den studios as well, which is a superb studio. So to have that setting, so yeah, it's a fabulous show. Hopefully everyone watches. I think we've got series 7 is on Amazon Prime now, and you can go back as far as the very first series on YouTube as well.
Yeah, that's a really big deal, obviously being on Amazon now,
Yes.
which is really exciting. You mentioned that obviously it's filmed in the Dragon's Den studio, and it does follow a similar format to how Dragon's Den works. Previously, when I watched Dragon's Den, there was always sort of either Theo Paphitis and Peter Jones. As soon as someone would go in for one, the other one had to go in for. Have you noticed that with any of the panel? Is there sort of rivalry between sort of pitches of if someone goes in for a particular investment, the other guy's got to go in for it?
Yeah, and quite often what you'll see, and I'm not sure if this translates because obviously it's edited, we may do an hour pitch, but there's only maybe 10 minutes that's aired. So it's how they edit it sometimes. But when everybody wants to wait until last so that they can pitch the best offer. So if the deal's a good solid deal, we'll all kind of make an offer on that deal, and then the pitcher has to decide who they want to work with. Sometimes they'll buddy up as well. So John 90% of the time doesn't share. He's not the sharing kind. Whereas you'll have Paul and Ranjan and Nicholas who will actually group together or ask me, do you want to do this together? And we'll, go 50-50 or whatever. So it's always interesting to see who they choose to work with based on our individual expertise. So if it's service accommodation, listed buildings, HMOs and things like that, then, the angels will choose me to kind of work with. And while I do commercial conversions and all of that type of stuff and development, if you've got someone that comes in with, a block of high-rise flats, then it's likely that they will choose John to work with. So it is a competition at the end of the day, not only between the angels, but also, of course, the people that are pitching, because they either get funding and someone to work with or they don't. It's it is gloves off, and there's arguments on set as well. They're long days, and quite often, you get hungry, and me hungry never goes down well. So you can always kind of tell when it's time to throw me a Snicker or something, because I get a bit ratty and start kind of asking perhaps more direct and less compassion in my approach.
Amazing. I think that's probably a show in itself, isn't it? Behind the scenes of the conversations that go on between pitches. So in terms of pitches, you've obviously seen hundreds of pitches, people coming forward. There's probably people in the audience right now watching this webinar that have got a deal that they would like to come on to Property Elevator for. What makes a good pitch? What from the pitches that you've seen, the ones that have stood out, what makes it, you know, memorable? What do you buy into?
It's hard, isn't it? Because some people are super good at pitching, but it's not a great deal. And then you get some people that are super nervous and they're not very good at pitching, but it's an excellent deal and they've sourced a fantastic opportunity and they're there genuinely just to ask for help and to bring you on board, to fund the deal, and then tap into your expertise as well. So it's hard. I always kind of take a view on the individual first and foremost. I don't judge how clear their pitch is, although, of course, if you get someone that stands there and they're confident, they've got good body language, good eye contact, and they deliver a solid pitch with an excellent deal, then the likelihood is that they're going to get funding. But I think a solid pitch, or the key to success has always come down to kind of 3 points for me. Well, it could be a hell of a lot more. I don't know whether you know the term proper preparation prevents poor performance, but it really comes down to preparation, practicality, and passion for me. It's not always just, or it's not just about the numbers. Of course, the numbers matter, but it's really about the backstory, the passion, and the purpose of the deal. Why are they there? Why do they want to work with us? What impact is this property or project going to have? And is that a positive impact? Have they thought about, obviously, a backup plan? Do they have, how many backup plans do they have? What contingencies have they put in place? Have they done that in both time and money? Understanding the numbers is important, but also understanding the end user. Who are you selling to? What evidence have you got to show that there's an audience for that type of product? We get some super creative projects that come through, and it's the individual that's passionate about the project themselves, and they haven't thought about the exit. And perhaps as a community or as an end user, the demand isn't there, or it's very niche, and I don't like those types of deals. I would say I like to see good solid exits, plan B or C as well, ideally, showing the numbers, but showing the research and how you've arrived at those numbers, looking at market trends, making sure that, if you are buying something to, split up, or you're building from the ground up, there's someone you're selling to, who that is, and you've checked the market to make sure, there's good solid demand and that there isn't an oversupply. Quite often we'll get people that come through and they'll look at a huge factory, for example, and they'll put it to me because maybe it's listed, and they'll say, right, we can create 100 flats in here. But actually, the research shows, or the area shows, that there's an oversupply of flats, and actually the area needs 2 and 3 bedroom houses, for example. So it's just about understanding all of that. I like that stuff. Whereas if you were to talk to John, he doesn't want the detail behind it. He'll ask always numbers. It's just about numbers. But in my opinion, numbers are worth jack if you can't achieve them. So I'll ask how you've arrived at those numbers, and what evidence have you got to support that that's achievable. And while we can, have sold comparables and things like that, that doesn't show demand. Where's your evidence that there's demand there? What's the current supply? Who's your competition? Who else is building? What planning permissions have been approved and built? What's still outstanding? I look at all of that, and that's where I spend most of my time. It will usually be on that exit and making sure that the numbers actually are achievable.
Wow. Yeah. You mentioned early on that in terms of, your different businesses, whether it's being a property developer, whether it's being a CEO, accountability was sort of a major theme through your leadership. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're looking for in those pitches, is the
Absolutely.
accountability. Yeah.
Yeah, always looking for that, because ultimately someone that will hold themselves accountable won't make excuses. You know, if you were to ask me what's been the key to my success, it's dog determination, hard work, blood, sweat, tears, time, money, but persistence and determination to succeed, regardless of what that is. So if I say I'm going to do it, I do it.
Yeah,
Um, and ultimately, I've made money over the years by solving problems. If you can get someone that's determined, holds themselves accountable, um, doesn't play the victim mentality, and very much takes responsibility for their actions, how they run their business, their people, their teams, their cash flow, and everything else, they'll, there's no way they're not going to be successful.
brilliant. Now I'm going to take you forward to your most recent project, so the £4 million entertainment quarter.
Yeah.
I've been fascinated uh, by this ever since I heard you speak at Ming, and obviously I did share with you before the call, before the webinar, that I've got a massive passion for history, and particularly looking after some of our more treasured buildings, whether it's in the town centre or, you know, sort of various historic sites around the country. And what you're doing is a real sort of passion project in terms of revitalising some of the existing buildings in Dudley Town Centre. Could you give the audience a bit of context in terms of what it is you're doing, what you're hoping to achieve, and some of the life you're bringing back to the high street?
Yeah, so I'll often work in areas of regeneration. So it's about identifying the opportunity, buying at the right price, buying at the right time as well, and understanding, the plans for that area, the grant funding available, the infrastructure that's been put in, and kind of taking a view with all of that. So I didn't just choose Dudley because it's steeped with heritage and I absolutely love the buildings. I do have a special place in my heart for Dudley, and I've been investing in Dudley for over 12 years now, perhaps even a little bit more if you count my buy-to-lets and things like that. But I think the reason I'm working with Dudley is because of the regeneration, the pot of money available, the infrastructure that has been planned, is happening, has happened, the businesses that are moving to the area, the connectivity, the location itself. I mean, Dudley was a thriving market town in the 1990s, and it decimated when the Merry Hill shopping centre opened up, which is a few miles up the road, and the high street just went under. So in terms of purchasing, you were purchasing super cheap, but there's a lot of incentives around bringing these properties back into use. And really what I found super interesting was there was less competition. I wanted to move away, well, not move away, but focus on areas where there was less competition, because residential realm under £250,000, which is the type of properties which were in this area, your standard buy-to-let, your HMO conversions and things like that. Once I've done something, I kind of want to move on, challenge myself, try something new, but also wanted to diverse my portfolio as well. So I started buying commercial properties, and the many of them were listed buildings. And I sit on several heritage trusts. I'm a trustee across West Midlands, Worcestershire, and Wolverhampton. So I specialise in listed buildings now, but of course didn't in the very beginning. And it really was my love for history. So I'm a data freak, but I also love history as well. I absolutely adore the buildings, and it started with that passion, really appreciating the original features, the uniqueness of the building, the desire to own something that is a part of history, but also the passion and the perseverance to restore them and respectfully take care of the past, but modernize them to bring them into the now and to serve future generations. So it was a massive responsibility. I started with listed buildings originally because when I was purchasing commercial, there was no business rates. So I was like, okay, if I'm purchasing commercial properties, I started initially just converting them into different types of commercial. So we wasn't necessarily turning them into HMOs or flats or splitting them up into houses or anything like that. That wasn't what we were doing. We were taking care, it's basically asset management. We were taking rundown commercial properties that were grade 2 listed buildings. We were then restoring them, bringing them back into use, putting good solid tenants in there, and then refinancing based on an investment valuation. And we were forcing the appreciation. But then, of course, working with the listed buildings, I also then started tapping into grant funding, learning more about them, and everything else kind of just flowed from there. It is a passion. I don't only focus on listed buildings, but I do absolutely love owning that part of history. It is completely unique. You are creating something special. There's a massive responsibility with it as well. But designing these places for the future so that they can become, back into public use it's why I absolutely adore it. I love it. They are not easy properties to do. They're super challenging. I'm working on the museum at the moment. I know that you've advertised that. Now that property had a covenant on there to state it could only be used as a museum. It had lots of legal issues as well. The roof had been leaking for over 10 years. There were huge damp issues, asbestos and everything else, which you always find with these types of properties. But this property had been closed for over a decade. And I used to go there as a child. I took my son there right up to the day that it closed as a museum, but there was no call for it to be a museum. There was probably only me that was actually visiting it at the time. And it's superb, beautiful, huge building. So it's just under 15,000 square feet. And it was just sat there empty, falling into further and further disrepair. Issues with, of course, the roof caused then other issues with the property as well. And it was just so sad to see it decline in the way that it was. And then law of attraction, I always used to say to my husband that I would love to own this property in my portfolio. And the picture you show is just the very front, which is fronting Priory Street, but St James's Road, it goes all the way down the road. It's such a stunning building, and the architecture and features is just, wow, it's beautiful. And this building I'm in now as well. I mean, this is a grade 2 listed building. I restored this one. This is my headquarters. There's a fire station that's been turned into a bar and restaurant. I'm doing an office block at the moment, which is on the site of, it's a scheduled ancient monument site, and it's the old weighing site. So the trucks would drive on. There's kind of like the little factory offices where they'd get their tickets and things like that. They'd drive on, weigh their load, and then drive off. So I think understanding the history behind the buildings is super important. Working with respect for the history, but also coming up with weird and wonderful and creative ways to bring these properties back to public use, restore them, and give it life for another 100, 200, 300 years. Yeah, I absolutely adore listed buildings. They are a passion project for me. I make a hell of a lot of money out of them as well. So it's not just about being passionate about the project. It's always about the bottom line. But the museum I'm working on at the moment has been super challenging, but that's what I like. I like to take on a challenge. We, of course, got the covenants removed and got planning in place for use Class E. It will be Cricket Sixes, Inflation Nation. We're in talks with Starbucks and a few burger places. I'm not allowed to say which ones for, at the moment. So there'll be a food offering in there with indoor food courts. And then we will have laser tag, digital floors, VR arena, escape rooms. So it's super exciting project. And this building, initially, lots of people looked at it as commercial to residential. But there's no way that that heritage would be on board. It's also in a conservation area, and there's no way that planning would have been on board with that either. So I understand, I sit on the town's fund, and I understand what planning want for the area. I go out to the public, I understand what's missing, I do whole feasibilities. So I come up with the best design and the best solution to put these properties back to public use, and I make money while I'm doing it. So it's a win-win situation.
Well, yeah, we had a question come in from Teresa, and it was around that, in terms of what types of activities will help regenerate an area. And it sounds like, particularly with the museum, but I know obviously with the fire station as well, you've made them into a destination for people to come to.
Yeah.
So obviously with the museum that was there before, that was in direct competition with the Black Country Museum, which is one of my favourite destinations. And instead of competing with them, what you've done is actually allowed them to coexist together. So,
Yeah.
when I'm at the Black Country Museum, the next place I want to go to is the entertainment quarter that you've built.
Yeah, and the Black Country Museum is, I go there every Mother's Day. And it's because of my mum, not because of me. And my son absolutely hates going there now because he's been there every single year, and he's kind of like, I don't want to keep going there, but I always go, and it's not necessarily competition because it was a different type of museum, and they could have coexisted, but the location for a museum where we were, which is right in the town centre, there'd been a lot of regeneration, and they built the Dudley archives, so they moved all of the exhibits to the Dudley archives, which left the museum redundant. Which was a huge shame, but it comes down again. This is the cost to run that building as a museum, and of course the footfall and things like that was really quite low. So there was no demand for a museum in that location, and because you do have the Black Country Museum, you have the zoo, you've obviously got the metro testing lines there, you've got the new college that's been built, you've got the hotels that have just been built, you have Castlegate, which is a food and beverage offering, and the hotels and things like that kind of made sense for that to be there. So rather than compete, it's about, of course, finding out, well, okay, it doesn't work as a museum because I was probably one of a few people that actually attended, but it will work as a community kind of engagement, and as you said, a destination hub. That's what it was all about. And I didn't just say, right, okay, I want to put cricket sixes or create escape rooms. I went out to the public. I found out what was missing. I spoke to local businesses. And of course, I own a large portfolio in this area as well. And my businesses also occupy, or some of them, in this area. So it was really about revitalising the high street, bringing footfall. And the way to do that was to create this entertainment quarter, and for it to be a destination location. So the way I did that was by buying several buildings and changing the use, getting them back. Well, they're not completed, some of them aren't completed yet, but buying several buildings so that we could do that, and we could do it by one building at a time. So the entertainment quarter is not just one building, it's the museum, which is of course the entertainment side. You've got the fire station, which is a bar and restaurant, and then you have the hotel, which was offices before, which has been converted into a 16-bed hotel, which is all themed around the Black Country Museum, the zoo, the local area, local famous people, you know, and the industry within the location. So it's kind of like bringing history, what's missing, and regenerating an area by finding out what's missing. It's about the public, it's about the people, it's about the end user. And successful regeneration projects are those that actually take that into account and come up with a good, feasible plan to deliver something that will actually serve the local people, but also regenerate the footfall and drive people to an area.
So the restaurant is in the fire station, is that right? That's
Yeah,
all up and running, so that's doing
yeah.
really, really well. When is the museum or the new museum due to open? Do you have a sort of date
Yeah,
on?
it was supposed to be January. No, I mean, I did want to try and open for the back end of last year, but as you can imagine, working with listed buildings and of course having lots of conditions that need to be signed off as part of the planning process, it's taken it's taken longer than we anticipated. However, and then of course, once you're stripping these types of buildings back, working with, you know, original features and things like that, and trying to sympathetically restore parts of the buildings, it takes time because it is specialist skill. They're specialist contractors that you bring in and craftsmanship, and it's about restoring it back to its former glory. So I very much focus on exposing the building and bringing everything back. So for example, the museum, somebody listed that partway through me buying. Of course, as part of that, I had to take that on board. It didn't impact me because I specialize in listed buildings, and it actually did me a favor, I guess. But of course, it did change some of the things that we were going to do, and also prolonged the project slightly. And then, of course, originally we were keeping majority of the features that were there were covered up, so we were stripping them all out. In stripping all of the internal partition walls and things like that were not part of the original structure, it's really shown a hell of a lot of issues that obviously need to be addressed before we can move forward, such as damp, dry rot, which we were aware of, but it's actually, and we did, of course, feasibilities on all of that as well. But of course, it has actually asbestos. You know, we were aware of the asbestos. We got asbestos report and everything like that. Renovation asbestos report carried out. But actually then when we started stripping further back, which were outside the original schedule, just based on the occupiers that are coming in and how we wanted to transform the space, further was found. So then it's kind of like the site has to shut down. We've got to remove the asbestos. We can't go back in until air control have said that it's safe. So it's kind of like had a knock-on effect. And then the other delays with that particular project was the storm that we had back end of last year. We just dropped the scaffolding down to the next level, because we'd completed all of the roof work, and unfortunately we've had a hell of a lot of new damage done to the roof, so we've had to get back up there and obviously sorting that out now. So they come with their challenges. I mean, you don't get that with new build. You know, once you're out of the ground, you know exactly what it's going to cost you, price per square foot. But with listed buildings, and when you're restoring, properties, and working with existing buildings, it's always different, and you have to make sure that you've got good solid contingencies in there. There's a lot of money in this project. I'm making a lot of money out of it, so from a financial point of view, the setbacks don't really have an impact. It of course just reduces my profit slightly, but I'm more than happy with the profit that I'm going to make. So but yes, I mean, they come with their challenges. We're set now to complete in March, and that's on the hotel and also the museum. but I've got until September to sort it all out.
Fantastic. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. We're all really excited. I'll definitely be making a day trip over to Dudley. And
Did you come to the site visit? Were you there? No.
I couldn't get time to go to it, but literally the week out, was it the month after the next event, when everyone
Yeah.
came back, they all said it was incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think people were really surprised at the sheer size and the number of original features that we've managed to uncover as well. Because of course we stripped out all of the internal partitioning and the kind of suspended ceilings and everything, and the beauty stripped back is just unbelievable. But yeah, no, it was a great day actually. Lots of people came round, all from Ming, of course, and hard hats to heels, obviously. Yeah, I think they were kind of a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of work that needed to be done. And with these projects, it feels like there's no step forward. You feel like you're working, challenge, 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 challenge. It's a good job. I like a challenge. And it really does feel sometimes like 2 steps forward and 10 steps back. You know, we're not talking about 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It can be frustrating. It's not for the faint-hearted, but it's super rewarding if you looking to move into that type of arena. I definitely recommend it. And again, you are owning a unique part of history and you're bringing it back to life. And I get a great deal of satisfaction out of doing that.
Well, please let us know in UK Homes Network if you're doing another site visit, because there will be a lot of people. I'll be front of the queue. I will definitely be attending the next one if there is one.
Well, we can invite. We can do an open day, an opening. We will be doing a launch, so you can all come to that as well.
Fantastic. And Hayley, you're obviously in your beautiful offices now. I was saying, you know, it's a really fitting backdrop to have the sort of beautiful details in the background, the old Victorian style, and that's where you run Hard Hats to Heels,
Yeah.
which has gone great guns in the last 12 months. You've had Robert Jenrick as one of your speakers. You've managed to unite the entire West Midlands networking scene. And every female property professional is talking about Hard Hats to Heels at the moment. Could you give us a bit of an insight into where it all came from, you know, what your plans are for this year, how people can get involved?
Yeah, sure. So Hard Hats to Heels is our female property and business networking event, and it really just started out wanting to create a space where women could just come and be women. I think quite often, and I've been in the industry a really long time, many women that I used to come across would behave like men. They had to be super dominant, super driven, and you can be that and be a female as well. You don't have to be a certain way. But it was also walking into rooms where it was very male dominated, and I'm, you know, a respected female in the industry, and I don't really get that feeling anymore because I'm successful in my own right, and I'm confident in what I do, who I am, the authenticity around it all, and I'll happily stand there and speak to anyone. But not everyone feels that way, and quite often females will walk into the room and we are the minority within the industry, and we're quite often the only skirt in a sea of suits. So it was kind of about creating a space where women could come together, be supported. It's a safe space. There's super great energy. We have awesome speakers, and it's a platform to be able to grow their confidence, to network with each other, do business with each other, but have a voice, feel purpose, and be heard. The women that stand up and speak at our Hard Hats to Heels may be their first time that they've ever gone networking, and they feel confident to be able to do that because they're coming to a female networking group. And the idea around Hard Hats to Heels wasn't to compete with other property networking events. It was to help grow their networking event with confident women as well. So the reason I've brought the communities together across the West Midlands, and I think you're referring to Jingle and Mingle, which was kind of my idea to put all of the networking events together for a Christmas gathering, is because many of the women that attend wouldn't think about going to another networking event that is male dominated. It's about giving them the confidence to be able to say, we're all there. We're going to this networking event. You turn up to a male dominated networking event and there's 15, 20 women that, might be in comparison to 50, 60 men, so still a minority, but we know each other. We understand each other, we can talk to each other, and it's about building confidence, supporting each other so that we can go out there, empower other women, and network with purpose, basically, and confidence.
Amazing.
I think being a woman in the industry, of course, has had its challenges, and it's really just about creating that space and environment for people to feel comfortable and heard.
Great stuff. And have you got any events coming up in the next couple of months?
Yeah, so I mean, we run Hard Hats to Heels. We've got, the next one is on the 7th of February, but normally it would be the second Friday of every month. It's here in my training facility. So we'll often walk around, because within this area I own a multi-million-pound property portfolio. It's a conservation area, and I've restored many buildings within this area. Just looking out of the window here, I've got a hotel here, a 21-bed HMO, 4 self-contained flats. The museum is on the back end. I've got offices, I've got car parks, pay and display. I've got a school, I've got bar and restaurant. So within the area, it's people can kind of see what I'm doing as well. So it has a real massive impact, and they can, if they want, go and have a look around the projects, and then they come here and of course network with good solid women, great speakers, and have a really great time as well. The energy in the room is unbelievable. So we're on the 7th of February, the next one. And we have 2 awesome guest speakers as well. So keep an eye on our social media and you'll be able to follow that. But yeah, I would say, lots of the guys get a little bit jealous that I don't invite them to the event. Because of course I teach men and women, and I've been a mentor for well over a decade, and majority of the people that come through it would be men, just because the uptake of property investors and developers does tend to be more male dominated. We are going to do a mix in as well, where the guys can come along, and that will work really well, I think. But we're actually spreading our wings this year. So we're going out to six different locations, and Host, we're licensing that, and Host will obviously run their Hard Hats to Heels events in different parts of the UK. And the idea is, of course, to go out to the whole of the UK, and maybe globally after.
Amazing. Yeah, I've been at a few developers networks, a few Mings, when you've talked about the Hard Hats to Heels events coming up. And all the blokes, you can see them, they're desperate to attend. There's always one question: can blokes come? It's a fantastic event, and I think the work that you're doing is genuinely having a positive impact on the industry. Women are feeling more comfortable putting themselves out there in the industry and having a voice. We've definitely noticed it with UK Homes Network. Our membership is 45% women at the moment.
That's amazing.
Which is I'm really proud of, because obviously that's not the representation of the industry, obviously, but it's showing that signs are moving forward.
It definitely is 100% moving forward. It is an underrepresented area, which is why we exist. If it wasn't, we wouldn't have to exist. But the networks like your platform, TDN, Ming, and the local networks, they all drive women as well. They're really pro-women, and that's why we work with them, because their vision is on board. It's not about being anti-men, it's about being inclusive, and I do a hell of a lot of stuff for men. I love working with men. Majority of the people I work with are men, just because I've worked with them for 20 odd years or so. So it was also about surrounding myself with good, solid women as well.
Yeah, and as a bloke, you don't feel like you're being excluded necessarily from that event. It's just more important to give women that space to have that kind of event. So yeah, it's really cleverly done with how the sort of marketing is promoted. Now, guys, if you want to watch the recording back of this webinar, it will be available from this afternoon in UK Homes Network. I'm going to get to our final question, and obviously Hayley can let you know where you can find Hayley. If you want to reach out about Your Freedom Empire or Hard Hats to Heels. I'm really conscious that your time is so precious with all the projects you've got going on. But and I do apologise. I wanted to touch on car parks because that is particularly fascinating. So we'll have to probably get you back for a part 2 to deep dive into that more.
It's my newest favourite strategy, car parks, pay and display car parks.
Yeah, and it's one of the adverts that we put out. So a little video of me talking about this webinar was that everything you touch turns to gold, and recognizing that opportunity with car parks is something that most developers wouldn't have seen or haven't seen, and you've been able to do that. But I'm just going to ask this question from Lily, because Lily's been waiting for a little while to put this regarding heritage buildings. So she absolutely loves to hear your passion in heritage buildings. Do you have advice for other people who are interested to be in the heritage board in your local area and be more involved with similar projects like you do in Dudley?
So do you mean sitting on the boards of the trusts that I sit on?
Yes, yeah. I assume that's what she means.
Feel free to reach out to me, so you can pick. I'm sure you're happy to share my details, Chris, and I can give you some content around how you approach being on the board. And it's really an interview basis. It comes down to the value that you add to the board, and of course, it is time consuming as well. So just bear that in mind. But I think it is super important because you are, of course, around industry experts constantly. You're learning, growing, working on super interesting projects outside of your own, as well as those through the trust as well. So I'm working on a scheduled ancient monument site at the moment, and it's on the site of a medieval leper hospital. Which is, yeah, not sure how I feel about that. But, that's like 10 years on, and it's only just started, actually. And it's completely taken parts of the building down, restoring and then rebuilding it as well. So the uniqueness of a project like that just doesn't come with your average stuff. And actually, how do you learn about something like that without actually going through it? We've got to have a fire hydrant the size of a shipping container. And how are we supposed to do that? There's Japanese knotweed, there's hogweed. Never heard of that until this site. Something that can blister your skin, apparently. There was bats. There's obviously, I mean, even just having Japanese knotweed on that site and doing obviously the work to remove and treat that has been a huge issue. It's a scheduled ancient monument site. So you don't learn about things like that. You have to do, and you learn from doing. So I think if you are interested in listed buildings and you are interested in preserving these buildings and restoring them and working with preservation, it will come from passion. It comes from a hell of a lot of digging into the history, but then working with the people to make sure that you're doing it sympathetically. It's going to be in a position where it's being put back to the public or as a residential home or whatever it is you're doing. but you're doing it sympathetically with modern, while being respectful of the past.
Great stuff. Well, I just want to thank you, Hayley, because that was an absolute, I'll quote my favorite podcast, The Rest is History. That was an absolute tour de force. And we only sort of scratched the surface of all the stuff that you've got going on. So thank you very, very much. I can see the engagement in the chat. You know, the audience are really enjoying it as a session. If you want to share the recording will be available in UK Homes Network after this afternoon. But Hayley, where can people find you if they want to reach out regarding Hard Hats to Heels, they want to know a little bit more information about the projects that you've got going on, or they're interested in Your Freedom Empire?
So if you're interested in Your Freedom Empire or Hard Hats to Heels, Hard Hats to Heels is a trading name of Your Freedom Empire. You can visit our website, which is yourfreedomempire.co.uk. If you want to reach out, you can book a call in with me on there as well. So there's a free 30-minute consultation where we can have a conversation. It might be about, you getting into listed buildings or needing a bit more advice around that, or it might be about training, it might be about Hard Hats to Heels. So feel free to do that. But if you wanted to reach out to me, probably the best place is LinkedIn. So Hayley Andrews, nothing fancy in my name on there. And I'll always reply to you. It is me personally that takes care of my own personal sites. And on Instagram, I'm Hayley Talks Property 24/7. So feel free to reach out to me on there. Give me a follow as well. And yeah, we do have a YouTube channel. We put out monthly market update webinars with guest speakers as well. You've been a guest speaker on there, haven't you, Chris? I think.
Not yet.
Have you not? I thought
No.
you had. All right,
No.
we'll get you on next month. So we have industry experts and different services and offerings that will come on and talk about obviously what they're doing, how they're changing space, the value that they're adding, but all really around property and market updates as well. That's called At Home with Hayley, and that's on the first Friday of every month at 9 o'clock in the morning. Feel free to register to that. And all of the recordings go onto our YouTube channel, which is Your Freedom Empire. The only one I don't really use is Facebook, although it looks like I do, but it links directly into Instagram. So if you're messaging me on Facebook, it might be 2, 3, 4 weeks before I even come back to you. And I don't do TikTok, although I do have an account. So I've not gone down that scene yet.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's the doom scrolling gets you. And I can't imagine you've got any time for that. So yeah, it's.
Chris, am I able to just share when Property Elevator is going live? Because it might be good for the audience if they have a deal that they want funding for.
Of course.
Propertyelevator.tv is our website. And you can apply to be part of the show. Applications will open on the 1st of February. And if you follow us on YouTube and also our socials, LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram, you'll be able to see when the applications have gone out and the process to be able to do that. But it'd be great to have some of your audience in the den with us, pitching on TV for funding for their deals.
Brilliant. And that's propertyelevator.tv.
Yes.
Great. I've just put the link in the chat. So guys, yeah, please do check out that website. Find out a little bit more about the show if you haven't watched it already. And obviously, if you've got a deal, please do reach out to the team. It's a fantastic show, and they're really there to support you with any investment that you've got. So yeah, Hayley, thank you so much. I really appreciate all your time today. We will get the recording out shortly. And yeah, I hope people reach out to you and obviously attend Hard Hats to Heels.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye.